He will pick up his 6th career victory at Bristol.
Welcome to NASCAR America Overtime. Dale Jarrett, Steve Letarte, Jeff Burton. We have the regular seasons coming to an end. We have 3 very different racetracks coming up. What are you guys thinking about the next 3 races?
Well, it's 3 very different racetracks, and if you're one of those drivers that are down there on the bubble, I think there should be some cause for concern. You just saw the highlights of Bristol, right? You don't have to have anything to do with it. If you're within a half a lap of a wreck, you could easily be in the wreck. Then you go to Darlington, which, oh, by the way, you better run on the fence all night long, but don't hit it. And then Indy, I don't care what you thought about Indy in the past. With this rules package, Indy's going to look very different. I'm not even sure what it's going to look like, but it's going to look different. So I think it's a pretty big challenge ahead of these drivers.
Yeah, the drivers have a lot to look at because I think physically and mentally demanding these 3 races that you look at are so difficult because everything is happening so quickly at Bristol, and you talk about all of those things that go on. Then you go to Darlington where you know just one little slip up. I mean, driving a couple of feet further into a corner can have you into the wall that you're having to run right against. And then Indy is just such a different racetrack. There's nothing else like it. And as you pointed out, with this rules package, you're going to have to attack Indy in a totally different way. So I think the opportunity is there for drivers to make more mistakes than what we've seen at these tracks.
I think the other thing we have to think about is conditioning.
Yeah.
You know how hot the Southern 500 is. Yeah. I mean, it is smoking hot. I know it's still at night, but it's still extremely hot race. These cars, I think the Cup cars will be hotter than they've ever been because they're going to be sealed off more of the racetrack. And then Indy, that place will burn you up.
Yeah.
It's so hot. So I think conditioning is going to come into play as well. And the unknowns. It's hard to imagine we're this late into the year. We haven't been to Darlington yet this year, hadn't been to Indy yet this year with this brand new package. And we saw this week, just because you ran well the race before doesn't mean you're going to run well this race because things are evolving that quickly.
Well, I think the pressure also goes to the organization. It's a weekend off after Bristol. But if you're Stewart-Haas Racing, who do you give the time to? You have Clint Bowyer and Daniel Suarez both on the bubble. I think that is a major distraction for organization. Hendrick Motorsports, it may not be popular to say this, but they know the 9's in. They know the 88's in. And the 24 looks pretty good. So if he can go through Bristol without a major issue, that weekend off can be, we're all on Jimmy Johnson. We have the entire organization and 2 weeks to get Jimmy Johnson in the playoffs. If anyone thinks that conversation doesn't happen, they're crazy. The playoffs are that important.
Yeah.
Roush Fenway can put perhaps all their effort in Ryan Newman if, the 17 doesn't make a move up the stack at all. Yeah. Stewart-Haas Racing, any way they look at it, they have 2 cars they're going to have to focus on.
Yeah, but where does that put you as far as getting ready? Because Las Vegas, getting that first track out of the way and a possible win there, setting yourself up right, does that put you behind in getting ready for the playoffs if you put that much focus on just getting 1 or 2 drivers trying to help them get in there? So it's a real balance they have to put out.
And the other part is you're trying to win a championship. So Stewart-Haas, right? So there's been a direction that the 4 cars gone in that is without a doubt help them, right? So what's the company going to do? Say, no, we're not going to go in that direction with everybody else. You're going to forge ahead with the team that's doing the best. And that may not be what the other teams need, right? I've lived that. I've lived where I would happen to be the best team somewhere and I wanted something and we went ahead with that and it wasn't good for everybody else and I've been on the other side of that. So it's really tough for some advantages in multi-car teams, but it's not all perfect.
Yeah, tough stretch for them. Drivers trying to get everything done, and then the crews getting all of these cars prepared, because you talk about start traveling the way that it's going to be. There's not a lot of time to get new things done that you would want to have for the playoffs.
And listen, I know everybody says if you're not good enough to make the playoffs, so be it. I don't want to be in the playoffs, but let me be clear. Clint Bowyer, Jimmy Johnson, those names, Daniel Suarez, they expected to be in the playoffs 22, 23, 24 weeks ago. You want to talk about a disappointing year? Losing the championship's one thing. Not even having a shot to win it? That's something totally out. That's where we see changes made in organizations. So it's going to be a lot to watch in the last 3 weeks of the regular season.
And on top of that, we have the XFINITY Series. They actually have 5 races left. Cup has 3. XFINITY has 5. They have some difficult racetracks coming up as well. Road course. You've got Road America, Bristol, Darlington we just talked about, Indy, they've run this package, and then Vegas. So they've got a difficult stretch ahead of them as well.
Yeah, but you talk about 5 completely different racetracks and getting ready for, and the Xfinity teams obviously don't have the resources that the Cup teams have there. So makes it even more difficult, but it really tests the driver skill, and I like the idea of that as they lead up to their playoffs.
I'm just thankful that I have to prepare the same way no matter what size racetrack it is for TV. Whoa, a whole lot less stress than my last job.
Yeah, I think the Truck Series, too, that kind of gave us insight into what we can expect to see in some upcoming races, some cut races. You know, here's the 6 that are moving in, but or 8 moving in rather. But what was really interesting to me last week at Michigan is that you had 4 different drivers that needed to win to get in, and they all led laps.
Yes.
They all led laps. And that, to me, was fascinating, sitting there watching, saying, which one of these guys can get it done? And I ran into Matt Crafton's spotter after the race. He was sweating, man. I mean, he was stressed out because if one of those guys won, he would have been out.
Yeah, highly entertaining to watch that. And now to see, as they go to Bristol to start their playoffs, who's going to step up and get that out of the way, that they're not going to be under that kind of pressure whenever it comes to the end of their first 3-race stretch.
And don't think that those Cup drivers, with all those playoff points, that watch that truck race aren't going to start hearing those whispers of how valuable those playoff points are. You know, we already saw Martin Truex Jr. and Cole Pearn gamble for 1 playoff point to try to win a stage this last weekend. So that's the other problem, is even the guys that are in the playoffs, they're not on cruise control. They're on attack mode. Yeah. Those playoff points help you get to Miami.
And the guys that aren't in the playoffs have one thing to do, and that's win races.
Yeah.
And so the other team's going to be watching how the truck guys, how the etiquette of racing when you're not in the playoffs, how does that work, right? Yeah. And that's always tough. If you're not in the playoffs, that's always a tough situation. But it is what it is. If you make them, you don't have to worry about it.
That's right.
The goal,
You're right.
Make the playoffs. Right. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. Look forward to seeing you in soon.
Hey Motorsports fans, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe before you go for all the latest news and highlights across motorsports.